Going to kick off the next session, and in this session we're really going to show a little bit about some of the processes that most people, and when we do the assessment work that Kevin was talking about earlier, the two processes that come up most often are accounts payable and HR onboarding. Really, because of the nature of them, it's really outside the organization's control around how they get information in. So whether paper, electronic, etc., they find it hard to control that process. And from an HR point of view, making it simple and easy, but really what we're going to work towards, and that we'll picked up by Neil at the end, is being able to have the control of that documentation set and how important it is to be able to own that documentation. So we're going to go through a quick video demo of both of them just to show you different ways of how we can access information, a little bit about improvements around how it would work, and then we're going to show you different ways that you can capture information in the HR section, utilizing the investment that you've all already made into Xerox as a platform, how we can help you transition that. What you see here today is set to a couple of guideline specifics. The only real fundamental thing that's standard in here is the content and the way we're doing it. We've got loads of options around how this might happen, and really what we'll understand by doing the discovery work with you is understanding what that actual process is and what we need. So this is just to give you an idea of flavor, but everything will be bespoke to how you work. Some people already have systems in place. We need to work with those systems. So it's an integration piece rather than anything else. So hopefully you'll get a feel factor for what we're talking about when we're talking about automating a process. So Kevin talked about it, but we never showed it. At the end of a process, at the end of understanding, we map out the process. And in the beginning of when we started engaging in this kind of discussion with our clients, working towards workflow, what we really found was really hard to make it tangible to the people that really mattered at the end, which is normally the finance director when they're paying some cash out the bank. So how do we make it tangible? And anybody else that's been in an operational role will know that systems have been installed and never utilized. They've sat on the shelf or underutilized. Our CRM system is one of them, because not enough information was gathered up front to make sure that that actually fitted the business needs of the organization. By making sure we map it all out and we understand exactly what we can achieve, it brings the tangible benefits to it, so we know that there's actually a business case and actually a reason to do this. And B, it tells us if we do those changes, it'll make a dramatic difference. So if you take, Andy mentioned it earlier, if you take a bad process and just automate a bad paper-based process or just automate it, all you're doing is making a bad process a little bit faster. You're not actually improving the process. So looking at a current AP and how that works, obviously a nightmare with lots of different paper sources coming in from all different types. So some of the invoices coming electronically, some of them coming via fax, some of them coming via email, some of them paper-based. How do we manage those kinds of systems? Manual entries, and possibly the biggest ones that take the most amount of time is physical sign-offs. This is where we see the majority of paper being printed. So everything else is electronic. CRM account systems all got all the data in it, but I need it approved, so I print it out to approve it. And that's where we see the majority of printing these AP processes coming through. So we're going to work through how we can utilize the system, to capture all that information, reference it back against databases, so we're not filling out a whole lot of information. Andy Jones talked about it in the insurance, making sure we capture that. And then we're going to show you how we can input that from Xerox technology and mobile technology back into the system. So this is just a little video demonstration that I'm going to run through. I'm not as brave as Kevin and going live and dangerous because I know what happens, and it proved itself right. So if we just go into the accounts payable, this is Docushare in private cloud. Just going through a demo. What it says there is you can see there's no documents in the structure at all. We're going to capture some documents using a process now, and it's going to populate the content, it's going to populate the folder structure, and it's going to populate the document name. All that comes from what it captures when it's capturing the document itself. Capture, rather than scan, and we call it capture now because the sources are so different. They can be from everything coming in via email, a data source, a whole bunch of invoices. So what we're doing here is we're just uploading a whole lot of invoices and sending in a batch. But this can be anything, whether it's a paper-based process, where it's paper-based and we're scanning it, whether it's a mobile technology, we're capturing it, or whether it's filtered in through a system, that we can do it. So we've scanned the batch in, and now I'm going to go and verify what I've scanned has captured the information I need, and whether or not I've picked up any exceptions. So it's reading the documentation, all the steps that now somebody would normally be doing, manually processing. We're going to change it into, rather than doing the processing, handling the exceptions. So handle the exceptions rather than handle the process. So we've got our documents that are scanned in, the invoices. We can see that some of them are showing a few errors. There's 2 over there, there's 4 errors over there around rules. What it also allows us to do is if we want to double check before we send the batch, we can check that we're capturing the right information. So we know that we're looking for that information. That's our invoice number. We're looking for the date. That was captured automatically. The document, because of the invoice, automatically filled out the customer reference number. And we know now that we're capturing which client it is. We can see the line items. And most importantly, we can validate the amount is correct. So we're happy that this can now be processed. If it thought it picked up any exceptions and it will learn and train itself, it would highlight them like it has done here. And in this instance, this set of data, this account, isn't yet in the CRM system. So it can't reference back to say, is this against a regular PO, or is there something there that actually references against it? So we'll kick that out as an exception and say, we'll disregard that invoice in this batch. In this one, it's registered O's instead of zeros, or zeros instead of O's. All you need to do is make a change. What it'll do is at the side you can see it constantly referencing the database, checking the rules and making sure that it's actually correct. So that feed of information that we talked about, feeding through, we know that that information now and that invoice is 100% correct because it's validating itself all the time against the information put in to the system. We complete the task, verification happens, and like magic, we go back to our content. And in here now, what was zeros, there's now 3 invoices in the work queue. So we have a workflow piece now working, and as part of Docushare, it's got its own content rules. Neil will go into some more detail how it specifically works, but really it automatically creates the rules. And what it's done is it's put approval process around this. So some of the invoices in the organization require second authorities. All of that is handled through the device. So what we're doing now is we're checking the metadata. So what was scanned in, it tells you the status of what's happening with that invoice. So if I'm just a general user, I can see this is still pending approval. I know what's happening with it, and I can see the amount that needs to be handled. So if we go into one of the other invoices, in this one, we know that the limit is a certain amount, so we know that it's higher than the limit, so we're going to have to pass it on for approval to somebody else. So this is, again, pending approval. In the background, the system's already sending links to the individuals that are associated with this process. They're getting a link in their inbox saying, hey, there's a new process here, that new invoice that needs your approval. Or they can log in, go to My Tasks, and automatically show them what tasks they have ready and waiting to be processed. So we've got the 3 invoices. We're going to show you just different stages of approval and options around that. So not only can you see it, but you can see the whole document itself again. So you're always live referencing the document itself. You can see that it's above. We know that this stage, the approver on this, Walter, can't approve it. So he's going to write up another piece and saying this needs a level 2 approval to be able to happen. It's automatically going to kick another workflow off. So all of these workflow pieces that are kicking off would normally be pieces of paper traveling around the business. So here you go, oops, can you sign this off please? That process takes huge amounts of time. So this is the gap in that we're trying to help manage. Other than already scanning and capturing in the information quickly, we're also speeding up the time it takes to get those approvals happening. So in this one, we know this is the one that's under the 1500. So Walter, my account man, he can process this one and approve. That it goes off into the CRM system again and says approved. We can link directly into the databases and of other systems, and I'll show you that a little bit later. Okay. So what we're doing here in 5 minutes could take 3 weeks by the time it's landed up between different people's desks and we've waited for authority. What we can also do is put it on the content that if somebody else doesn't answer within a certain amount of time, it automatically emails them and says, you need to approve this. So this one is the one that wasn't in the database. It's going to be rejected, and we'll see it in the rejected jobs. Okay, so we go back now. Now we'll see that the different buckets within the folder structure is that we now have one approved, which was the 830, one still in the work queue. It's automatically now captured that that's for research and development, so it's again created a subfolder, and that's the invoice. We can again look at the status of the job, and we can see now that's approved. So if you're looking in and I'm trying to understand as a different user, if this document's now been approved, you now have access to be able to do that without having to go and ask the person, hello, have you approved this yet? Or what's happening with that invoice? You can just go straight into the system and have a look yourself. Rejected. We haven't put many notes around this, but you could put a note around it saying, this isn't in the database, this is what you have to do. It's just an example of what we might do. So status updates. It's rejected. If I was working on it, I can change the status. So I can say, okay, now status has been changed and now is approved. You can now carry on working with this document and kicks back into the process. So we're going to log out and log in as a different user. Ian, just to make sure that he's the one that needs a second approval, just to show that the workflow continues all the way through the process. And the magic about this is these aren't content rules that are created by your IT teams or your infrastructure teams or anything like that. You can create what happens in Docushare yourselves as a user. So you can create these content rules, nice and simple and easy. Yeah, he's happy. Approval away. So each step of these processes are also capturing what's happened with the process. So if we want to review what's happened with the process and who approved it and when they did it, we can also see that. So it allows us to monitor the system as well, monitor what's happening and whether it's effective or not. The final piece. So this is just anybody if you want to look. So we would find this extremely useful to understand whether things are being captured. We can quickly look as an accounts team to see what's happening. I just want to see, as a finance director, I just see all the invoices that have been approved, so I understand what's happening and what's going to happen. We can link this directly back into the account system, and you just see everything. It's got all the metadata, exactly what the amounts are, etc. So everybody's got clear visibility. So that just gives you a little overview of how a simple process, by taking multiple steps out of it by automating, and just having that approval piece running in conjunction can save huge amounts of time within that window gap. What we really want to just show here is just different methods of being able to capture. And we just got two capture work streams. One from MFD. So this is standard stuff that you'd be asking to do. So this is an HR process. So we've got Sue, who's logged in here. She's going to look at the folders. As a new employee starts, she'll get notifications to say new employee started. You can create the forms on the front end of this as well. So we can pre-populate the forms, or we can help you work with the forms processing, so everything's filled out, so it's captured. Anybody that works in this process will know how many gaps there are when a new person starts, and how often the backwards and forwards transfer of information, trying to get everything captured, takes a huge amount of time. So how we can help do that is, we know that it is. Danny's been said that he can't, we can't find his employee status. You saw that it was linking directly back to the database. So it automatically pre-filled all the things in the same way that the app would. It knows who he is. It's got from his employee number, it knows exactly who he is. We now have his record of address, and HR manager can say, yeah, I like it or I don't like it, based on having a visual of the document, rather than saying, hey Danny, next time you're in the office, or in this office, can you please bring me a proof of address? You could scan it in as a normal, but there's no approval or anything in the back end. So everything then would take a step in time. So this is employee document. So just showing this is the right details, got the right address in, we're happy. We're now going to approve the process and say, right, I'm happy. Danny will get a notification saying, thanks Danny, you've provided the right information. You can continue to work here. Or you're a stranger, go away. So I've got no more tasks. The second one, poor Danny didn't do a very good job, and he's forgotten to show his proof of ID. So he's just going to capture that from his mobile because he's out on site. Just to show you different capture techniques, one from the MFD directly and then one from mobile. Everything links in, and those databases, you can see when we go through the process here, we can see that some of the stuff can be pre-filled even on mobile. So we can have optional fields, required fields. So Danny will have to provide the right information rather than just pushing through an email that says, oh, here we go. He has to provide certain information as part of the process. So he goes into the document folder. Not rocket science, but good way to show that there is a way to always capture data wherever you're at. So these are two very simple ways of showing that we can capture data nice and simply and easily, and automate what would take a huge amount of time waiting for that physical proof to be shown, signed off, approved, etc. We can see him filling out his information there. At the end, Sue will get a record and an email notification to say, yeah, Danny's provided all his information and we're ready to go. So we've worked hard with Xerox and the workflow team from Andy to package up a couple of these standard processes, and really the heavy ones are invoice, HR, contract management, expenses and compliance. Those are already packaged up, whereas we have a way of capture, we have a way of workflow, and we have the content management at the back end. This doesn't mean that this has to be the way. We'll work with you depending on the systems you have. So instead of you've got SharePoint, you made a huge investment into SharePoint, we'll help you link that process into that SharePoint environment. We might want to do it that the real pain is trying to get control over that process yourself. And this is where the power comes in, around being able to control what happens to that process. So we've got a dashboard view. We continue the analytics journey even after the process is installed, because the process is never perfect. And what it allows us to do is capture, lines of business can see exactly what's happening in their process. So the next slide is the process dashboard for finance. So they'll see how much money is about to come out of the account. Do I need to do something? All of these links are all drill downs in the same way we showed user analytics. So I can now see, that on the 9th, we paid out a lot of money. Why is that? I can go review that. I can bring the documents and the links directly back into the Docushare system to show that live document again, or to show how many invoices are in the process. More importantly, it shows the people working on the process, how many people are doing it, how many they're approving at a time, how fast is that efficient process. And really, the baseline for analytics is to understand that if there's 2 people doing the job, one's able to process 20 documents, one's able to process 3, there's either a problem with the person processing 3, or the way they're doing it is inefficient and the way that the person's doing 20 is more efficient. And taking that information and sharing it amongst your departments to say, right, okay, great. You've got a person sitting next to you, they're doing it this way, let's change that process. They found a workaround, they found a way of working better because they themselves wanted to make it better. How do we help you continually improve that process? We put a dashboard at the end of that process to continue to show you how to work it.